Okay, looks like we're live, Amanda.
Hi, everyone. How we doing?
Hello, hello. Very good to be here.
Yes.
We're excited to host another Mobley webinar, and lucky to have Amanda with us.
Yeah.
If you're dialing in from somewhere exotic, put that in the chat. I'm kind of looking forward to a vacation in the Caribbean, somewhere
I was
warm.
going to say define exotic.
I don't know. It could be your basement actually,
Yeah,
depending on where you are.
exactly.
Yeah, it looks like I recognize some of the names on here,
Oh,
which is a
awesome.
lot of
Yeah,
fun.
people are rolling in.
Yes, hi everybody. Everybody hopefully had all their coffee. What are we after? I guess we're afternoon now, though. Second, third coffee at this point, Amanda?
For me, yeah, it's 2:00 over here on the East Coast. So I've been on a matcha kick. I've been on a matcha kick. I don't know. I'm kind of liking it. It doesn't give me that like jittery coffee thing. So I've been liking this new motion. We'll see.
Awesome.
We'll see if it lasts.
I'm curious what everybody in the audience drinks. Are you guys matcha as well, or coffee, or energy drinks? What are we drinking today?
Oh, energy drinks.
I've been all water actually today. I had a little bit of orange juice in the morning, but I've been water today. Brought my water.
Energy drinks that is a commitment. I could never.
Have you heard of like a swig or like a soda, like a dirty soda shop? I say dirty, but that's kind of what they're known as.
I don't think so. Like spiked soda?
Yeah. Well, it's not spiked. It's literally just like mix-ins. Like you put like a kind of like boba, but like instead of that, things like vanilla or cherry or like just like the typical mix-ins.
Oh no,
like
I've never.
Almost like a soda bar.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's big out here, and we just had. I think so we have this investor that came in from New York, and she was like all about it. She's like, I'm so excited to be in Utah because I'm going to taste one of these, dirty sodas. And it literally was just had like a few mix-ins, like I said, coconut cream, vanilla. And anyway, she had one for the first time yesterday, and just it blew her mind, like how sugary it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun. It's fun to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I know we've got a dozen people or so on, and really excited to do this. So, Amanda, again, thanks for taking the time to be a part of this. I'm going to do a quick little housekeeping for those of you that are on the event. If you have questions, feel free to just drop those in the Q&A or in the chat. This is going to be a live session, so we hope to go back and forth if you have any questions or thoughts. But if you do want to listen to the whole thing and then ask your questions at the end, that's great too. We'll have a probably 5 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And so we'll have Amanda, who is an expert in field and event marketing, answer hopefully all those questions. And if there's anything for me, I'm happy to jump in too. But really, this is about Amanda and her experience, and hopefully valuable to you and the community. Amanda, just as a reminder too, generally our audience are going to be field and event marketers. If I'm wrong, if you're in their chat, feel free to add that message in here, because that's usually who we have register, but sometimes sales folks, sometimes executives also jump on. A lot of these folks too are either evaluating Mobley or have used Mobley as well, just to give you an idea. And so, yeah, I think as we jump into this, I just wanted to first have you introduce yourself.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about Stensul, your role there, and then we'll get started.
Sweet. Yeah. So hi, thanks for having me. My name's Amanda, and I have been in marketing roles of all kinds for the 10 plus years in my career. I've been in all sorts of different industries, from like construction software at the very start of my career to early childhood education, cybersecurity, and MarTech. MarTech is kind of my favorite, my baby. I'm back in MarTech now. I've done roles in MarTech before. And I was actually talking with Kris before we started. While I've never actually held a title of field marketing, events has always been a hugely important and massive part of my role in every single industry, every single title, and every single size deal or that we're going after, like different ICPs, like events was always relevant and always really, really important. So just like for that to be known is important too for me. As far as Stensul goes, yeah, thanks. Currently I'm at Stensul. We're a campaign creation platform. So we allow you to build emails and landing pages in a no code way. And so that's, there's a lot of different ways that teams utilize the tool. We have B2B customers, B2C customers, relatively vertical agnostic, like many industries use us. But with that, kind of the bigger the team, the better. Like what we find is the more cooks in the kitchen, the more people involved in the creation process of emails and landing pages, the more the value of Stensul shines through, because it really creates kind of this no code approach to creating those assets in a safe, guardrailed, brand appropriate way where highly regulated industries really, really value Stensul. So yeah, that means, we're often going after the enterprise, and events are key. And also our sales cycles are a bit longer. So it's not just one event and done. We're really thinking of a multi-channel long-term play for all of our accounts that spread the breadth of a year.
Yeah, that's great. In fact, you and I met at a trade show, right?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Yeah. That was a fun experience. It was interesting because I had a sales rep come to me and said, hey, you should come talk to Stensul because they have a team and they're sharing the badge scanner. And and so we got this opportunity to meet, and it was clear to me at that time where, we were really early on at Mobley, trying to understand the field and event marketer, have some empathy and understanding of their business. And it became very clear there's not a lot of really good technology to support them, and it's a lot of manual work. And so as we built this outline, Amanda, one of the key parts of it, and I hope that this is helpful to our audience here, is around strategy. And my question for you is, like at Stensul, targeting the enterprise, like how do you think about events, and how do you approach that process of building a strategy for your annual planning, like around events?
Yeah, totally. So like first and foremost, I would consider myself like a very analytical marketer. And so like data is everything. And we know that everyone's database isn't always the cleanest and things like that, but really good event marketers and marketers in general should like know their CRM front and back and really be able to like pull those reports and understand how past campaigns did, like really like looking at what went well, what didn't go well. And by the way, do you know what well means? Like how do you measure the success of an event? Like that's actually the really great starting point. Is once I know what good looks like, then I can go back and look at the historical data to see which events fall in and fall out of that good definition. I would personally say that like events that built qualified pipeline, and that can mean different things for different organizations, but events that built qualified pipeline are good events to repeat. Ideally, it's events that, you have close one business from, but with an enterprise sales cycle, depending on when you're doing this analysis, you might not have that information yet if the event just happened a couple months ago, for example. So that's one of the things I always do. I think when I started at Stensul, I went in and immediately started looking at all the past campaigns, which were probably like a majority of events, because events is such a strong channel for us there, and started just like measuring them. Okay, how much pipeline did this create? Where's any close one business off of these, and ranking them and figuring out what the ROI was based on investments and things like that. So again, that's a lot, and that's like no small feat, but looking at that historical data, number one starting point. And then thinking about like alignment with maybe your company's go-to-market strategies. Stensul is really thinking about like, what's the value and messaging that we want to put into market in 2025, making sure that your event ideas align with that, and that core messaging is going to carry through everything you do at those events. I guess that's kind of like later in the process, but also something important to think about in strategy and like how you're planning them. And like one thing, the ultimate thing and kind of the nature of this topic is aligning with sales. Even at the beginning, even if you're brand new to the company, have some one-on-ones, like interview your sales partners and ask them where their accounts go. Like, what events did they like the most last year? Why? Things like that. What new ideas do they have for hosted events? I know at Stensul, our sales team is full of ideas, and they're very collaborative and very like much want to be part of the planning process. And I think that's really cool, because then you don't risk kind of some of the frustrations that we'll talk about throughout this if you're aligning with them up front and hearing them out and getting their ideas.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I just got done with an event where the head of sales was talking about why he was so frustrated with marketing from event leads. Yeah. And his main issue was that marketing was basically creating these leads for him from his perspective, right? That he couldn't convert. These were like folks that weren't interested. They had the wrong job titles. They were like, maybe in the industry, but were looking for a job. Yep. All of those kinds of things. And so I love the way you described like that partnership between marketing and sales, them being included in the strategy, understanding how you're doing it. Yeah, I think if anybody has any thoughts on that, feel free to add that in the chat to the message here, just because, it's a huge frustration for sales. I think it can be difficult for marketing as well as they try to battle.
Exactly. And I think that frustration comes up because the due diligence may not have been done from the start, where I'm talking about historical data, looking back at what successful is. That also leans into like ICP definition and refinement. Like, if all these titles were at this event, did that used to be a priority and no longer is it? And like, have your personas changed and your ICP changed? Like, those are all super important factors when you're thinking about your strategy and like putting that into place. And also when you're presenting your strategy to your sales partners, highlight that you thought about those things to recognize that all the work that was put into like why this plan is how it is. And like, they'll really be able to lean into that. And like, that transparency is super important. I think like kind of this frustration is not having that alignment causes those moments where a VP can say something like that. And understandably so, like, what a waste of dollars if the team feels like there's no one to follow up with. A named account strategy works really well here too, to like avoid that problem if you're only going after events where your named accounts will be.
I love that. Yeah, some great tips. This will really help, I think, a lot of event marketers in getting a better experience in working with sales. So as you think about the event, right? And this is a very common way for, I think, field and event marketers to look at an event, probably a company even just to look at the event. There's the pre-show, everything that happens during the event, and then what happens after the event, right? Yeah. Can you maybe talk a little bit about like how you think about that, especially maybe starting with the pre-show and some of the tips and frustrations and challenges that go on in that process after you've figured out the strategy? Now you actually have to execute.
Yeah. Well, I would say like the number one mistake a field marketer could make is showing up to an event, and that's the first time you've thought about it, or the first time you've collaborated with a salesperson about it. Like, there should be so much going on in the 4-6 weeks leading up to an event that like the sales team should know the ins and outs of everything. And there should just be total alignment, and the marketing team should be doing things to activate the database and try to figure out who might be, say it's a trade show. You really want to try to figure out who's going to be there. Right. So one of the tricks we have is hosting our own event outside of the trade show floor. How that helps us understand who's going to be there. If someone signs up for our event, whether they show up to our event or not is one thing, but now at least we know they're actually going to be there. They're going to be at the conference. We can prioritize that account now because we know that they're going to be there. So part of our playbook for pre-show is definitely, it's the marketing activation. We're going to have LinkedIn ads live. We're going to have email nurtures. We're going to have dedicated sales off cadences for our sales team. But it's also about sales enablement. And like part of a big part of a field marketer's permit is sales enablement. And perhaps you have a sales enablement team at your company that can help support you in this, but you are the one that knows the details about your event the best. And so you're going to need to guide those sessions. So for us, for me currently, how I work it is we have a sales kickoff 4 to 6 weeks before an event happens. And that's when the wider team gets to understand who the audience at this event is going to be, gets all their target list resources, all the sales loft outreach cadences, whatever you might use are created and live for the team to use. They maybe get a sneak peek at what marketing's been doing if we have assets to share. And it's really about like galvanizing the team of like, this is exciting. Here's all the activations we're doing, the sidecar events, the booth number, everything they need to know to like get them hyped on reaching out to our audience and telling them about this event. And actually, by the way, there's steps before that where we're talking to sales leadership all along the way. What do we think about this activation over this? Like full transparency and full collaboration before the rest of the sales team even knows about it. So that by the time we're announcing it to the wider org, LT is like by our side, aligned, already knows this is the plan. Your leadership team should not be hearing the plan when your AEs are hearing the plan. That's a big tip from me.
I love that. Yeah, that's a big, I mean, every piece of that, right, is as you think about budget, you think about execution, strategy, and then ROI, in order for you to get your budget back to next year. And this is, I think, somewhat of a fatal flaw for somebody first getting into field and event marketing, right, is that if you're not doing all of this up front, you show up at the show, get all the leads, and then try to convert them. Your executive team is now at your leadership team right there asking, hey, how did it go? What happened? Where's everything? And you don't have answers.
Right. Exactly. And that's why it's so important to like continue the activation through. You also don't want the event to be this point in time thing, because guess what? Especially if it's a conference, there's 100 other logos doing the same stuff. So how can you differentiate yourself? And that's by creating unique experiences before the conference, so that by the time they're on the show floor, they see your logo, they see your booth, and they're like, oh yeah, we're heading into Adobe Summit personally here at Stensul. And like, that's a huge flagship event for us. And we're starting to get really creative. We have a named account strategy this year. And we're like, what gifts can we do? Like, what can we do to combine like Vegas and Stensul and like get really creative so that we can start to figure out who's going to be there and then they remember us? Or how can we get them to come to the booth by offering something super unique? Those are all conversations and plans that are actively happening throughout January for a March conference with our sales partners.
Yeah, it was one of the first things that I learned was, when we went to our first trade show, was you start to see all the other booths, exhibitors, and those that are doing all of those things before the event. So you're sort of the lonely booth that doesn't have anybody coming to the booth simply because you didn't engage with them before the event. A lot of the deal making and the conversations and like the setup and the invitation, that's all happening pre-event.
Yes.
So that's big time. Crazy. I love that. So now that we're like at the event, right? There's this whole during the event experience. What are some of the biggest challenges, pitfalls that you see in that process?
Yeah, so this is totally dependent on the type of show, but like I guess I'm kind of on a conference vibe right now because I'm so deep in Adobe Summit world. But for conferences in particular, like booth mayhem, right? Like that can get really crazy. At Stensul, we have a mascot. We have a giveaway that people are obsessed with. I mean, it's like, I was thinking, I don't know if I have him.
It's like one of my favorite swag items.
I probably have him somewhere. But it's a sloth, and it is a plushy, soft sloth. Yeah. So of course, all the parents.
It's the best.
Yeah. And it's cute and it's fun. And you're kind of like, I mean, okay, I guess I kind of get it. But it's wild how much that drives like that first engagement. And so what happens is we're at the show, we're like running all around, and mind you, last year we purchased 5+ scanners for Adobe Summit, and we were still in the moment of like ripping scanners out of each other's hands, trying to make sure we got everyone. And one of the biggest frustrations from my sales team and the feedback, especially from like the VP level and the leadership level, who really wanted to digest the notes afterwards and like really understand who came to our booth, was like, I had so much more to say about XYZ account and I couldn't say it because it got ripped out of my hand. And then I couldn't find which scanner it was on because, as we may or may not know, each scanner is unique. So typically they aren't synced together and you can't see like which scanner you had when you scanned that person. And so this was like a huge, huge frustration for us last year during conference season. And it's definitely, I mean, it's one of the reasons we adopted Mobley 100%, so that every person at our booth could be their own scanner. And also, like, we send a lot of people to some of these conferences and we still couldn't manage that traffic. And so that's, I mean, it's a good problem to have. That's like, booth traffic is not always going to be like the make or break deal. But I think that like comprehensive notes about who you're talking to is the make or break deal. And whether you have a lot of traffic or not, sometimes those scanners don't allow for that. So that was like a really big frustration that we had to work through, why we brought on Mobley. Also, that live feed. So not everyone in our company goes to every event. We have a group of SDRs back at home, kind of doing their outbounding still. And, you know, we wanted a way to be able to have that live feedback in. One thing we did, you know, before we had Mobley, is created a event Slack channel. So every single event has its own Slack channel dedicated, and it has all the assigned staff that's going to be on site, and then all the sales team as well. So that can be the one-stop shop place where we're having conversations about what's going on at the event, on the show floor. This person just stopped by, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Where's this event? Where's this dinner? That's been really fruitful, and it's a super active Slack channel for the entire week that we're at a conference. But also now with Mobley, I'm super excited to use it at Adobe, because we're going to have that live feedback loop right into Salesforce, which is even more important for all the people sitting back at home. We have a really amazing and new advanced scoring mechanism of how we score accounts, and every campaign response matters for that. So being able to have that campaign response live, meaning visited booth at said trade show, is considered a campaign response for us. Like, having that live, be able to like define scoring and reprioritize accounts for the people sitting at their desk is going to be really, really cool.
I know this is a little bit off topic, Amanda, but as you said that, it made me think a little bit about when you talk about account scoring, you know, every booth activation or whatever you're calling it, right, that gets you a point or score of some sort. Are you then adding those as they do more things with your organization throughout the event? Because you have different activations, you have different touch points, there's speaking sessions, dinners, etc. Like, is that kind of how you might rank at the end of the show? Who's an account with the most experience or like most interest?
Yeah, totally. And actually, like, you're making my brain spin now too, because we always counted those activations separately, but we never had a great scoring mechanism to be able to like show the impact of an account that did all of them versus one thing. So now I believe with this new scoring, and I like need to jot that down to connect with my RevOps team, we can actually see that in like real time. The scoring refreshes every so often. I'm not recalling. So yeah, absolutely. Every booth visitor will be a campaign response. Every sidecar event attendee would be a campaign response. Anyone who attends a session we're running, that will all be creating the score. And the score is actually what gets an account in front of a sales rep now. So it's really important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exciting to see. It's just, it's part of my thesis around that a lot of the event data, right? Your scores and touch points and things like that are getting dropped at events. And so to your point about like, we got to be effective in our jobs and be able to get the money next year and prove the ROI. And we'll talk about ROI here in a sec. You've got to be successful at converting those leads. So knowing which ones are the hottest, where are the best conversations happening, who's got the highest scoring, right? Which accounts are the most important ones. It's critical then to know that, because then your teams can actually activate on it. Mm-hmm. I love that. So, okay. So we're now we've talked about some of those frustrations. I think we're now, talking post-event. The mayhem is over at the show. You want to breathe for a minute, take some time off. Like, that's the feeling, right? Like, you're talking Adobe Summit. We're still like a couple months away from doing Adobe Summit, right? Or weeks away from Summit. I mean, it's a lot of work. How do you think about post-event, and can you just take a break like right after the event?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Tell us about it.
The follow-up to the event is, like, maybe this is a hot take, but more important than the pre-show. Like, I find that a lot of teams will put so much energy and effort into the pre-show, whether that's a conference or a webinar or a hosted event, and then lack on the follow-up. And a lot of times that's because of the visibility factor. Who did what? why, when, where, what are the notes? Like, one of the biggest frustrations is from the sales teams is too many places to look for insights. Like, my biggest learning in like taking an ABM approach and doing more things of like account based is one workflow, one set of dashboards to really like guide the sales team into how they should follow up and where they should be looking is the best strategy. And it's really hard to do. Like, we haven't even cracked that egg at Stensul quite yet for our AEs. Like, we're really trying to hone in why is Joe looking here and Eric's looking here and, you know, etc. when really all of the information they should see, like, here are my accounts, here's what they did, here's the resources I can use to follow up, like boom, 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 because they all exist, but for some reason they're all over the place. And so really getting to that, like, one place to look for insights and one set of data that they can trust is like really, really important. And I think, like, as a field marketer, a skill set that will really make you stand out from the crowd is caring about that and understanding that how important follow-up is. And like I said, knowing your CRM front and back, being part of the follow-up process, hand-holding, for lack of a better word sometimes, of like, why didn't this get followed up with? You should know what accounts should be followed up with just as much as sales, if not more, and should be able to check whether that happened or not. And so if you don't have that visibility, work with your rev ops team, work with your marketing ops team, because you should have that visibility as a field marketer owning the event. And if you don't have that visibility, sales might not have that visibility. And so really making sure that they have the visibility, they can see it, and that you're like using that data effectively. That's like a big, big part of it, which kind of leans into like my other frustration that can happen. Sales can get really upset. Actually, it kind of circles all the way back, Kris, to that anecdote you told in the beginning of the VP of sales, like the set it and forget it list uploads after the event. One, now you're days and days after the event has already closed. And so you have a time lag. And then two, they're like, what are these titles? Like, who are these people? These are not ICP. These companies are too small. They're too big, whatever it might be, because you didn't clean up the data set before you were uploading it and expecting sales to follow up. Like, don't do that. Don't set it and forget it. Don't pass the lead to your marketing ops partner and hope for the best, the list. Like, really partner with them and make sure that you know exactly who's being uploaded and why. And like, maybe you're making an executive decision and you're looking at the list and you're saying, oh yeah, these 50 people, like, let's not even put them in our CRM. Like, they don't even need to get in front of the sales team because they are so not ICP or whatever it might be. Like, those are decisions you should be making with your marketing team to ensure that the stuff that you're putting into your CRM is the stuff that matters and the stuff that's going to be followed up with. And so, yeah, I guess, like, again, data is king in the front when you're planning your event, but data is so important at the end when you're following up and you're expecting sales to follow up. If you can't answer a question about what did this person do, then they can't either.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say it all goes well. You've done all the things that you've laid out, right? And you're a great event marketer. You've partnered with ops, partnered with sales. The leads are getting in as quickly as possible. The follow-up is great, right? Like, and when you get that ROI, like, what can you expect as a field marketer when you've done all this work? Because it's hard to just do it and then not be rewarded at the end. But what kinds of things happen that you can talk to in terms of like your career and event strategy and like your ability to continue to grow? Like, would love to get your take on maybe what your experience has been.
Totally. So I think at the end of the day, revenue is everything. Like, the bottom line is we're all in businesses that need to make money. And so when we can speak to the ROI of an event that we planned, created, and sometimes that ROI, like, depending on your leadership team, depending on like kind of the principles and kind of what you're measuring, sometimes ROI, like return on marketing investment, can be, like I said earlier, qualified pipeline. It doesn't always have to be close one revenue, but close one revenue is the best thing that you can report back on. Absolutely. And then that's true ROI. We spent this, we closed this, we're plus X percent. And being able to tell those stories is really good. If you don't have the closed won revenue to report back on, that's when you can kind of lean on your qualified pipeline. Like, not only did this event book 100 meetings, all 100 of those meetings moved to stage 2. That's a really good indicator that these opportunities were of quality and we should go back next year and continue to nurture this audience. Like, those types of stories, data-backed stories, are what help show the value of your channel and your events, and then can help you tell your career story. This is kind of a different topic, but like, one of my big tips if I'm managing someone, I do it myself. I keep a running list of accomplishments, often, if not always, tied to revenue, tied to pipeline. But even if it's not, I keep a running list of accomplishments by quarter, so that every quarter I can reflect and understand the impact that I had on the company. And so when it does come time for those reviews, for those one-on-ones, you have your anecdotes, you have your stories to tell, and like the ways that you help the company progress. And that's like, I probably was told to do that by someone years and years ago, but it's one of my key things that every job I create a new document, every new company, I've always had accomplishments from each of them just documented and saved for that.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Great tip. So just to summarize, we've been talking about really the 5 marketing or event marketing habits, right, that frustrate sales. Yeah. And there are a lot of them. And you, as you said, we have to partner with them in order to be successful, right?
Yes.
Maybe you could just summarize for the audience one more time a little bit of that, and then and for the audience, right after Amanda does that conclusion, then we can jump into some Q&A. So if you have some thoughts, feel free to throw those into the chat and we'll prep those.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So we kind of started with the strategy. So number one frustration from sales is not aligning with them, not asking what works, what doesn't work, not asking what their accounts are interested in, because it makes them feel like they're not part of the planning process, and they should be. Another thing, like I said, the worst thing you can ever do is show up to a conference or an event having done no pre-show outreach, planning, enablement, and just showing up and expecting everything to happen afterwards. Don't do that. Big frustration point for sales teams, and probably also for your marketing leadership team, that you didn't have a plan baked in advance of the event. Frustration number 3, we're at the show. It's mayhem. It's crazy at the booth. Scanner, I was calling it scanner hot potato, pulling scanners from each other, not finishing those notes, not having real-time insights, all of that kind of like just confusion and chaos that can ensue when you don't have like a democratized way to scan folks that you're engaging with. Also, I didn't mention this, but being able to use your scanner at your sidecar activations. So a lot of the times, like, a gap is, oh, we planned all these side events, but we didn't have a way to like check people in, or we didn't know who attended or who didn't. That's data that's missing. And that's going to be a frustration for sales. They don't know who went. If we knew that a person or an account attended, that could have lifted them up to priority 1. And we just don't know that. We're losing out on an opportunity. Number 4, set it and forget it. List uploads. Definitely, we don't want to do that. We want to own our list uploads. We want to partner with our marketing ops team. We want to really understand our CRM, Salesforce, whatever you might use, and make sure that you're not creating duplicates and sharing messy data. And then frustration number 5 for the sales team, big one. I'm still working on it. It's a constant work in progress, this one, but too many places to look for insights. Not making it easy for them to follow up on the event that you just executed is definitely a frustration point. But I would just like to point out that these are all ebbs, they all ebb and flow. And they're kind of like part of your career as a field marketer is to solve for this. And then maybe it backtracks and it gets worse again, then you're solving for it again. But like, always having your mind on how you can be the best sales partner and tweaking things and optimizing so that can continue to be a good working relationship is like the ultimate most important thing. They should be your best friend. I make it my number 1 mission every time I start a new career, a new job at a new company, like, let's find the sales team. Let's get coffee. Let's do lunches. Like, let's be best friends.
I love that. You should be besties with sales.
Besties.
Not always easy to do. Not always easy to do.
No, it's not.
But it's yeah, I think it's the right move. So thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Totally.
So one question that I have for you is, just kind of back to the ROI a little bit is, and also the relationship with sales and maybe the tech a little bit, but like, when you're dealing with these lead lists and sales reps all over the trade show, right? You are getting, opportunities or leads that are coming into the CRM. And then you're also getting some that aren't making it into the CRM attributed to, or not attributed to the event. So when you start telling that ROI story, you might have limited data simply because the reps aren't putting it. How do you think about like, and try to make that tracking work really well for you? And what have you seen work?
Yeah. Well, automation is very important. We've actually done a really, really cool job at Stensul of creating a process that allows people to book meetings on site at the booth. And through that, when they book the meeting, they get routed to the appropriate account owner. They pick their time, they book their meeting. And our incredible RevOps team has created like back-end Salesforce workflows to automatically create an opportunity from that meeting being booked with the campaign of the event associated with it, like automatically boom, boom, boom. So even if that person missed the scanner, but they booked a meeting with us, we'll have that attribution. I've never worked at a company though that had it down like that. Like that is a really cool workflow, and it helps for those gaps. And then, transparently, like Mobley is going to help with those gaps too, because everyone is going to have a scanner like in their back pocket. And so we shouldn't run the risk of missing people, because you'll be talking to someone and you have your own personal scanner versus trying to look for one and steal it and risking that they're walking away.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So another question came in, and this one is kind of around the strategy of your event, right? If the goal is brand awareness, how do you actually suggest measuring impact? I don't know if that's very often at Stensul that you do that, because I'm hearing more and more that like brand awareness was kind of a thing that marketers would often say when they couldn't really define the ROI exactly. Right. Maybe I'm wrong, but sales always say that. But yeah,
it's fair. I think that was the point of view. And like this, in that big like inbound era, growth at all costs era, like everything was about pipeline and expansion. And I think now we're kind of seeing almost like a backtrack of the original just like importance of brand awareness marketing. And that can happen in different ways, like thought leadership. Honestly, things like this happening where I'm speaking on your webinar doesn't really have anything to do with Stensul specifically, but it's like a really great way to just like create thought leadership and be valuable to people that we're communicating with in our audiences. And that is super important. Like that to me is the new brand awareness. But that being said, some of the things that I would suggest looking at is, do you get any website traffic increases? So, okay, you have an event happening, and then after you see that your, monthly engaged sessions increases, that's a really good indicator that like you made an impact and people are kind of starting to check you out. Even though this is kind of more demand capture pipeline driven, we implemented something on our demo request form that was just a simple free text field. How did you hear about us? And it's like, it was amazing to see the insights. Some of it's junk, it is, but like sometimes like what we were able to see is not only was their pipeline directly attributed to events, now there's X percentage of demo requests that happened after the event because they saw us there. And we could start to see that. And so that doesn't even, that doesn't count towards pipeline yet, but now we're seeing these top of funnel metrics of like, inbound requests that are happening because of an event, because of that field. And it's qualitative and manual. You do, you have to look at it and every so often and just kind of do your analyses. But that information also helps us know which events we should repeat. We see a lot of demo requests come in after Adobe Summit, after Salesforce Connections, for example, in our industry. And so like we've just doubled down on those events year over year. So yeah, engaged web sessions. Something else I learned, I follow Kris Walker on LinkedIn. One of his indicators, like direct traffic. So you have you might have referral sites. People are coming to you from LinkedIn. They're coming coming to your site from all the activations that your marketing team is doing. But what about your direct traffic? Like, you want that to be going up and to the right as well, because that means people were seeking you out and they were typing in your brand and going there. So those are kind of like direct traffic, overall website engaged sessions, and then kind of that self-reported attribution and the how did you hear about us field on your forms.
Yeah, those are some great tips. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any other questions, Amanda. So if we don't get any more, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I really liked it.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for attending. This will be available on demand as well. So we'll send the recording out. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.